Hello, I'm Don Lam, co-founder and CEO of the VinaCapital Group. It's now mid-June, and Vietnam has emerged from the pandemic much more in a better state of economy than most of the countries in the region and the world. The economy is reopened and things are back to normal. Traffic jam is starting again. But not all things are being rosy. The next 6 months will be one of the most challenging times for Vietnam and the world. But Vietnam has significant competitive advantage that should help it continue to be one of the world's fastest growing economy. One of those advantages is attracting foreign direct investment, or FDI. Because FDI is such an important driver of growth, the next 3 videos of this series will look at what we call the next wave of foreign investment, where it will come from, its impact on Vietnam's future, and how it will be higher quality than in the past. Over the past few years, Vietnam FDI inflow have been extraordinarily high compared to the regional peers. In 2019, registered FDI reached over $38 billion US, up 7% from 2008, and it's a 10-year high. Most of this was direct to manufacturing, with foreign companies attracted by Vietnam's high quality, low-wage workforce. Factory wages are about 1/3 of China, as well as the country's geographic proximity to China and the rest of Asian supply chains for garment, furniture, electronic, and other industry. Since 2008, the world has been slowly de-globalizing as a result of the global financial crisis and other factors. The COVID crisis exposed serious weaknesses in many supply chains, and the World Trade Organization predicts the pandemic will result in a 30% fall in global FDI growth. Part of that related to politicians in some countries who want to bring manufacturing jobs back home, a sentiment that had grown during the outbreak. Regardless of this trend, we don't believe it will slow FDI into Vietnam at all. In fact, we and others believe it is set to increase. Deglobalization is mainly about 3 issues. First, concern about the over-reliance on China-based supplier. Companies thought they had a global supply chain, but it was actually a China supply chain. 2, consumer backlash to China. In the US, 80% of consumers say they now prefer not to buy made in China product, according to Bloomberg. And this sentiment can be seen in other developed countries to a lesser extent. 3, regionalization, where manufacturers are focused on regional market rather than a global one. For example, a factory in Mexico will produce goods for Canada and US, while a factory in Vietnam produces goods for the rest of Asia. Regionalization instead of globalization. While some American and European politicians talk about bringing production back home, and the simple fact is that they cannot in most cases. It's a nice political slogan, but it's not a realistic for many reasons. Labor costs are obviously one reason. A European or American factory workers typically pay much more than a Chinese or a Vietnamese worker. US manufacturing has been hollowed out. It's now contributed to the smallest amount to GDP in 70 years. There simply aren't enough skilled workers in either the US or the EU. In the US, the medical education system doesn't produce enough potential labor, while in Europe, most of the countries have aging population. Most countries have been trying to cut costs for years, and the prospect of higher labor costs and the economic uncertainty of the virus will intensify corporate cost cutting. This cost pressure will likely bring more production to Vietnam and not less. Multinational companies will be under pressure to not only cut costs but also their reliance on China as a manufacturing base. These pressures bode well for Vietnam. On top of these factors, Vietnam still enjoys 2 advantages that draw on investment for years: a skilled but low-wage workforce, and a geographic proximity to existing supply chain in China and the rest of Asia. Another factor to support the idea that more FDI will flow into Vietnam is the country's effective management of the outbreak. The government's decisive action to control the virus have earned praise from international organizations, public health experts, and the news media. It's also strengthened the confidence of the Vietnamese people and the foreign business community. The Economist magazine even stated that the company will keep in mind how countries respond to COVID-19 in deciding where to locate a factory. That same article also noted that Mexico's haphazard approach to the pandemic creates an uncertainty for companies, raising questions about the reliance on that country. These factors mean that few countries in the world are as attractive for FDI as Vietnam is. There are nearly 200 countries in the world, and the cost of production inputs such as land and labor in most of these countries are far below the cost of those inputs in the developed market. Corporate decision makers can use a funnel approach that disqualifies countries based on successively stringent factors. The first set of disqualifying factors include political instability and poor physical infrastructure. Most of the world countries don't meet this minimum threshold and are immediately eliminated from consideration. The next set of criteria applied to this now reduced pool of candidate countries include factors such as availability of factory worker, the availability of line manager, and labor costs. Many countries are eliminated from consideration at this point unless manufacturing is simple. Finally, criteria like reliable electricity supply are used to eliminate potential candidate country for location of a new factory. Vietnam easily passed all those above filtering criteria, which immediately put it on the most company short list of countries considered for locating new factory. Another ranking scheme used by company is called EPIC, Global Supply Chain Readiness Index. This framework was developed to help the manager of global supply chain assess the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and the threat of different regions, countries in the world by evaluating individual factors relating to the economy, politics, infrastructure, and competence. This scheme currently ranks Vietnam ahead of Indonesia, the Philippines, and Thailand, but below Malaysia. It de-emphasized low wages and put greater importance on the size and attractiveness of the country's domestic market. One area Vietnam's 100 million population and growing middle class come into play. These and other tools have led to a number of companies set up operations in Vietnam even before the outbreak. One example of next wave investment is Apple. That company and its contractor like Cortec and Foxconn have all recently accelerated move to produce more items in Vietnam. Back in 2015, the Wall Street Journal reported that some Apple executives were suggesting that the company move some production to Vietnam. That suggestion was set aside, according to the article, which then explained how the US-China trade war combined with the outbreak prompted Apple to switch gear. Recent news reports say that the studio headphone will be manufactured here without having been made in China first. Apple have also reportedly been advertising opening for a wide range of positions in Vietnam. These moves suggest the company is starting a process of encouraging its component provider to develop a cluster in Vietnam. Apple is not the only company expanding manufacturing here. Samsung has shifted most of their production to Vietnam. And with more recently, Panasonic announced that it's moving production of some household appliances from Thailand to Vietnam. It's clear that this company will soon be joined by many others who are eager to also avail themselves of all Vietnam has to offer. So in the next video, I will discuss in more detail why we believe this next wave FDI will have a bigger impact on Vietnam's economic future. Thanks for watching. Please visit our website for more detail about this and other topics. Thanks.